Hello everyone, you're just joining in our literary heaven, the Little Nook by Fairy and his Fairy. Let's start our today's topic, but before going further, don't forget to subscribe my channel, like the videos and share if you find it valuable. So now let's jump into today's topic that is about literature and morality. There are two main schools of thought holding opposite views about literature or art in general. The view of the moralist philosophers, Puritans, is that the writer does and inevitably does influence the lives and the characters of his readers, and therefore he should try to be a good influence. So, the view of the aesthetes who believe in the theory of art for art's sake is that, on the contrary, the writer cannot influence his readers, or alternatively, that he can but must never try. For them, literature is wine, only its player value matters. The theory of art for art's sake came into prominence in the 19th century in France. It is important champion was Gautier, who believed that art is not merely amoral but anti-moral. Flaubert, a great novelist of France who always believed in this theory, remarked, "No great poet has ever drawn conclusions." And Baudelaire, another great writer, pronounced, "Poetry has no end beyond itself. If a poet has followed a moral end, he has diminished his poetic force, and the result is most likely to be bad." In England, the theory of art for art's sake didn't move so fast or so far as in France, though it went quite far enough. It was started by Swinburne, but the most important figure was Walter Pater, who could claim to be the major prophet of English aestheticism. In this study, in the history of the Renaissance, he made a significant remark. Every moment, some form grows perfect in hand or face, some tone on the hills or the sea is choicer than the rest. Some mood of passion or insight or intellectual excitement is irresistibly real and attractive for us for that moment only, not the fruit of the experiences, but experience itself is the end. So Peter here was Oscar Wilde, who went a good deal further. He remarked, "There is no such thing as a moral or immoral book. Books are well written or badly written. That is all. No artist has ethical sympathies, and ethical sympathy in an artist is an unpardonable mannerism. All art is unique, useless, or all art is quite useless." On the other hand, the protagonists of the theory that literature or art has a moral purpose are of a far larger number than those who believes in the art for art's sake theory. And in the fact it is the former who at present hold the field. Plato and Aristotle both lay emphasis on the moral values of literature. Sir Philip Sidney, in his Apology for Poetry, argued that the value of creative literature lies in the fact that by adding emotional appeal to the finer human qualities, it can do more to make men finer than the philosophers can. Spencer wrote The Fairy Queen in order to fashion a gentleman or noble person in virtuous or gentle discipline. Milton wrote Paradise Lost with a view to justifying the ways of God to man. Dryden, a great poet and critic, expressed his views of moral values of literature. He remarked, "Delight is the chief, if not the only end of poesy. The first rule for heroic or dramatic poet is to lay down to himself what that percept of the morality shall be which he would institute into the people." So Dr. Johnson seems to fluctuate in his view about the moral value of literature. From Shakespeare, he thought one might collect a system of civil and economical prudence, and yet the fields. Shakespeare seems to write without any moral purpose, but one sentence of Johnson summarizes the truth admirably. The only end of writing is to enable the reader better to enjoy life or better to endure it. Endurance, of course, involves qualities of characters. In the Romantic period, Shelley remarked, "Shakespeare, Dante, and Milton are philosophers of the loftiest power." Wordsworth emphasized the didactic element in literature when he remarked, "I am nothing if not a teacher." Keats also was a worshipper of beauty, wrote in Sleep and Poetry that the great end of poesy is that it should be a friend. to soothe the cares and lift the thoughts of men. And in Hyperion, he said that the only those who can be true poets to whom the miseries of the world are miseries and will not let them rest. In the Victorian period, Matthew Arnold made a slightly concession to the ethical demands of his age by defining poetry as the criticism of life. But Ruskin was the most empathetic in his view of the moral values of art and literature. According to him, art is the highest sense, is supremely useful, and in that it enables man to fulfill his real function, which is to be the witness of the glory of God and to advance that glory by his reasonable obedience and resultant happiness. Another great writer of the 19th century who laid great stress on the moral aspect of art and literature was Tolstoy. According to him, art is the means of union among men, joining them together in the same feeling and indispensable for the life and progress towards well-being of the individuals and the humanity. Some 20th century writers have followed Tolstoy's views in a milder form. H.G. Wells remarked that the writer should class himself not with the artist but with the teachers, the priests, and the prophets. Bernard Shaw remarked, art for art's sake means merely success for money's sake. Good art is never produced for its own sake. It is too difficult to be worth the effort. Mr. Somerset Maugham is another modern writer who belongs to this group, and he remarked the value of the art is not in beauty but in good action. Little as like the deduction, I cannot but accept it, and this is the work of art must be judged by its fruits, and if these are not good it is valueless. If we look at the problems dispassionately and weigh the arguments on both sides, we find that there is an element of exaggeration on both sides. The main purpose of the literature, as we have already pointed out, is to give aesthetic pleasure. But it is wrong to say that the literature should be amoral or anti-moral. On the other hand, the business of the literature or the literary artist is not to teach but to exhibit. Life ought to be like that, says the moralist. Life looks like that, says the artist, having had his intuition and being satisfied with that, the artist has no other duty except that of the expressing it as perfectly as he can and communicating it to others. But we admit that the moral considerations cannot fail to enter into the subject matter of every artist who is handling life and characters. A moral issue may characterize the theme which has been chosen, as it does in Hamlet, in Macbeth, in most of the great tragedies of the world. Characters will often be lovable or reversed according to the manner in which their moral attributes have been sympathetically treated. Morality being one of the principal issue in belonging to the very fiber and the texture of all literature, it cannot be otherwise for life. It is a subject matter. That was all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay connected for more literary videos. Me, Fairy, signing out from the Literary Nook by Fairy.